Welcome back to Meet with Afro. I'm your host, Ejire Delahun, and today I'm with entrepreneur Addis Alemayehu. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so can you can you give us a little background about your journey as an entrepreneur?
Okay. My journey as an entrepreneur essentially started off from when I was a very young person. I think I was probably 8 or 9 years old when I grew vegetables in the back of the house and sold it to my mom. So being an entrepreneur is essentially providing a product or a service in return for compensation, right? So the first time I got paid to do something was growing vegetables for my mom and getting paid for it. So.
Okay, so you're one of the people who started Afro FM for the first time, and you also are one of the investors at Ghana 251 Communication, as well as Bio Delivery. So you do have like a lot of investments. But the most interesting part is Afro FM, and it has inspired a lot of people. Growing up, I used to listen to it all the time, and you have inspired a lot of journalists directly and indirectly. And my colleagues attribute working there for being a better journalist. And you don't have a background as a journalist, but somehow you managed to make pretty decent journalists. So maybe can you give us a background about that?
The reason why I looked into starting Afro FM and even a radio station is because back in the day, this is pre-data and podcast and all of that. The only way you could actually get any sort of information in the car was through radio. And I realized that there was only one or two radio stations in the city, and they're all Amharic. And so that was the starting point. And I didn't care much for it because at the beginning, when I first moved here, I had a small, what they call I think it was called an iPod, where you'd like iPod Shuffle. And you had like 2,000 songs on it. You plugged it into the car and you were set. Yeah. And then mine broke. And then I turned the radio on and I realized there's nothing I could enjoy listening to. And then talking to a lot of expats and friends and all of that, and realized that there's a lot of people in the city that would love to have content about the city, about the country, about what's going on, business opportunities, whatever it may be, but they didn't have that. So that was the beginning of the journey for Afro FM. But I also didn't want to do something that was just sort of very boring in terms of the delivery and the content. So we borrowed some ideas from Kenya, and we brought a couple of Kenyan journalists to come and sort of help us start it. We wanted to do something different, so and we did, because just like you said, there's a lot of people that grew up with Afro.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. So, Longline Magazine referred to you as a serial entrepreneur. So I have to ask this question: what qualities do you think an entrepreneur should possess?
One has to be a risk taker, because there's that formal journey of getting a job, doing what you're supposed to do, and getting a paycheck and going home and resting. Because an entrepreneur never ever rests. There's no vacation days. There's no, your mind is always working, because you're responsible not just for your business idea, but for all the people that work for you and all the vendors and service providers, all of that. So it's a very stressful place to be. People always see the sort of the fun part of it, but there's a lot of back end stuff that a lot of the public doesn't see, that every business person deals with: stress, tax, policy, all of that, employees, everything else. So it takes someone to be a risk taker. It takes someone to be innovative. It takes someone to have the grit. Grit means like day in, day out, because some days are really bad. You still gotta wake up in the morning and go back and fight again. So it takes that much effort and energy, but you have to love it as well.
Okay, so you mentioned that you started doing this when you were 9, and for me, it feels like that you were natural at it, because can anyone be an entrepreneur, or with some training, or do you have to be a natural at it? Because it looks like a lot of people who are entrepreneurs are usually a natural at it, or they're a natural leader. But do you think people can train to be an entrepreneur?
There's two or three types of people that actually become entrepreneurs or business people. One is the person, that all feels like, I want to be independent. I want to, do my own thing. So I'll figure a way to make a living doing what I want to do. That's one person, and that comes from the way you're raised, your people around you and all of that. For me, my grandmother was a business person. She was an entrepreneur. I grew up under her, so I saw what she did for someone that didn't read or write. She had more property, more businesses, and more money than than anybody I knew at that time. So she was an inspiration, and without knowing it, kids learn without knowing it. So I basically took that, and then the second sort of entrepreneur is someone that starts a profession and sees a gap in that profession. So you could be an engineer, you could be a computer technician, whatever it may be, but while you're doing your work and while you're going through your life and your professional life, you realize that there's a missing service or product that you want to provide. Yeah. So you see a lot of people in probably the mid-30s, early 40s, leaving their profession to start a business, but usually around what they saw as a missing link, right? And then the third sort of entrepreneurs are people that have no choice but to become entrepreneurs. So the young ladies that you see serving bunna and chai on the street, or opening up a little shorobet on the street, I'm sure they're doing it because they have no choice. Right. So there's three ways that you become an entrepreneur. One is you're born in it. Two, you see an opportunity and you actually write a plan and go for it. And the third one, you have no choice but to go out there and hustle.
I see. Okay. Can you be trained though? Like, can you train to be an entrepreneur? If you say, okay, I want to start a business, but I don't know how to do this, especially when it comes to risk taking, it's difficult for a lot of people to take risks, as you said earlier. So is it something that you can train, or?
No, yes and no. You can train people to think a certain way. You can't train someone to be a risk taker. You can train someone to put a business plan together. You can train someone to, to be able to understand how marketing works. You can train someone to sort of look at opportunities where there are none. You can sort of train people to take the idea that they have and make it a reality. But at the same time, you don't have to do everything. An entrepreneur is someone that finds, that has an idea and finds the money and finds the people to get that done and puts it together to make it happen, right? So for me, I've never run or managed a radio station, but I managed to open one. I've never managed a TV production or, never been behind a camera, but, started a TV station just because I found the right people and the right money and put that together and sold them on an idea. So it was a journey together. So if you can't do it on your own, you find people that think like you, act like you, and believe in the idea to take the risk with you.
Okay, I'm taking notes. So what are the important factors that you should consider when you start a business?
So start with the client first. Who's going to buy the product? Who's going to buy that service? Do they even want to? Are you competitive? What's your competition doing? What different product or service are you bringing to the table that somebody's willing to go out of pocket and buy it, right? So that's the first thing you need to check into. It can't be something that only you thought about and you think that it's the best idea in the world and the world is gonna take it from you. No, it has to come. It has to be tested. It has to be somewhat, your gut will tell you if it's going to work or not. But what I usually tell people is to take their time, and unless they already know what they want to do, I usually tell people to spend a month or two just writing down ideas. And when I say ideas, just writing down problems. Whenever somebody complains about something, just write it down. It could be your friends, it could be your parents, it could be your colleagues, whatever it may be. Whenever they complain about a certain product or service or whatever it is, write it down, because at the end of the month, you'll have at least 30 business ideas. because a business is just solving a problem and charging people money for it.
Okay.
That's it. It's not that complicated.
Okay, so you mentioned how important it is to know who your clients are who are going to buy your product. So for us, it's a bit difficult because we don't have the statistics. We don't have enough research done when it comes to understanding the market, who wants what or what's missing. Of course, listing down the problems, it helps, but understanding the market or sometimes timing is also important. So to understand these, you need statistics. So what do you think we should do in a country like ours where there is no enough research?
That's just an opportunity. You just talked about an opportunity right there. People need research, so that's an opportunity right
People
there.
need research.
So do research and sell it back to people that need it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we have a communications company and we do some research, and there's companies that are willing to pay for it, and that in itself is literally a business,
Wow.
right? Because before you come up with a product, we do test it in the market. We do whatever it is. Do the people want it? So how much would they be willing to pay for it? What's the competition that the product is currently facing? The packaging, the color, the logo, the brand, the tagline, all of that needs to be researched. You just can't come up with a product without actually going out and doing the research. But I also feel like you're right. There's a lot of there's a lot of lack of research in this country. I don't see that as a problem. I see more of that as an opportunity for the right individual or the right person.
I see. It's crazy because we're constantly complaining about the things that we don't have. Damn, we don't have this, we don't have that. And like one of the reasons that we can give for not starting a startup is maybe I don't have an idea, but everything that you complain about is an opportunity for a new business.
Yeah.
Okay. Say we come up with the idea, but and you don't have the capital. So who are the investors, and how do you seek them out, and how do you convince them or tell them that this is a bit like the best thing that they can invest in? Of course, you might have a great idea, but sometimes maybe you're not well spoken, maybe you don't know what the investors are exactly looking for. So how do you tackle that?
It all depends on how far you are with the idea and where the idea is and who you are and where you are, because I don't care who it is. I think almost every business person out there, no matter how big they are, somebody gave them money to get started. Could have been family, it could have been friends, it could have been it did whatever it is. Somebody gave them money to get started. So starting from the lady that's selling coffee on the street to the guy that's building the tallest building in Addis, I'm sure somebody supported them somewhere along the line. Usually at the start of the business. Most people start a business by borrowing money from family and friends. In a place like Ethiopia, where you can't go to the bank and borrow money based on your idea, it's usually friends and family that come to the play. And then there's two ways to raise money. One is to borrow it and pay it back with interest. Another is to offer the person who's lending the money a share in your company.
Where do you find those people?
For us, they actually come to us. Mainly because we're very active on social media and we actually go out and seek great ideas and great teams, and we invest in young people that are either just out of college or in their early years of their profession, and have a great idea and can prove it to us, and we take the risk. We take that first initial risk with them. But we're along the journey, so we're there to train, we're there to mentor, we're there to cry and laugh with them at the same time, because when we put money in, we want our money back, so we keep an eye on them.
Is there a lot of investors that people can ask or can go to? Okay, social media is a good place to look for, but aside from that, you might someone might have an idea and they're just sitting on it and they don't know where to go. Where are the best places that you can go aside from asking your family and friends? Where could we find potential investors?
It's a good question. I think right now the government is working on lending money to young entrepreneurs, and it's going to be non-collateral based. So they're going to lend the money based on your idea. So I think the Development Bank is coming up with that, And some of the banks are also looking at that opportunity in regards to taking a bit of the capital and investing it in young people and young ideas, and in various sectors, not just tech, but agriculture, manufacturing, industry, services, hospitality, whatever ideas you have. If you can prove that it has a chance of succeeding, you can borrow money. I'm advertising the Development Bank of Ethiopia right now. They better lend me some money.
Yeah. Okay. So, but like, don't you have like you? I think you're supposed to go in groups, right?
No.
Just one person?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a good deal. Okay. Regarding consulting. So when it comes to consulting, I've had people come to me and ask me for a business advice, which is a bad idea because I don't know how to run a business. If I knew, I would have a company. So I feel like people are going to the wrong places asking for advice for their business. And they can't go to a consulting company because either they're too expensive or they don't know where to find them. So when it comes to developing a business plan, or when it comes to looking for an advice about your business, where should one go?
Online. Online.
Online.
There's everything online. I mean, this is the age of what I have a friend getting that from ICOG who says this is the age of knowledge or the age of information, and he's right.
Yeah.
And literally almost every single subject matter is online. Whether you want to read it, whether you want to podcast about it, whether you want to watch a YouTube video about it, every single subject, like how to write a business plan, how to pitch an investor, how to put together an Excel sheets, how to almost everything you can think of in terms of starting, running, managing a business and managing employees is online. You have no excuse. Your kids have no excuse at all.
Okay, that's a good answer. But usually when I go on the internet, so the other day I went on the internet looking for how to be financially literate. And the informations are either for Americans or for people who are living in Europe. And I believe the one that I watched was for people living in Europe, and they were asking, I live in America, and what are the advices that you can give me? And he said, oh, I'm based in Europe. I really don't know how the market is in America. And not a lot of people are vocal about the situation here in Ethiopia. I mean, earlier we talked about, it was off camera, but earlier we talked about how difficult it is to save money with the inflation rate. So we don't have people on YouTube talking about this kind of things. So when it comes to business plan in Ethiopia, they're not familiar with the policy. They're not familiar with how. So when you're pitching to an investor, you can use different things that Ethiopia has. I mean, as it turns out, we are with 8 hours flight away from half the world population. I wasn't aware of that. So where do we find this kind of information? Because I feel like we don't have enough content about how to build a business in Ethiopia.
No, I disagree. I think there's enough content. There's enough people that are willing to share their journeys. There's an event almost every other day in terms of people talking about their journey and how they did it in different subjects. You just have to make the effort to find the people that you think you want to sort of learn from, right? And I have never met anybody that said, I don't have time, so, don't bother me. You can always make 10, 15, 20 minutes of your time available to speak to someone who needs it. I speak to hundreds of young people all of the time. And, the funny thing is most of the questions are relevant, but they're also the same questions, some of the questions you're asking me now. I've said it over and over again. It's not rocket science in terms of it. I think Ethiopia offers probably some of the best opportunities in the world for business, just because we have so many problems.
I see. That is true, but I feel like information is scarce where the people and the companies are not connected. Well, we say that there's a lot of problems when it comes to employment opportunities. But what I've seen after I started working is there are a lot of companies looking for talented people, and those talented people don't know how to go to those companies. And the same goes for, you said you can go to different events and you can speak to different people. And well, like I believe it was like 3 months ago, I didn't know who to go to or who to talk to. You need network.
You need to start though somewhere.
You need to start
from
somewhere.
that first person. You know what I mean? So it took me 21 years to build the network that I have. It took me 12 years to build the social media following that I have. So it's like, it's work. It's literally work. Networking is work.
Networking is work. That is true.
It's not going to just out of nowhere. You're not going to meet everybody and everything. It's work. It's literally work.
So you just have to
be consistent at it, yeah.
And talk to someone out of nowhere. It's okay.
And ask them to introduce you to people and get on LinkedIn and DM people and make the time and effort to go see them but don't just waste people's times. Do your own research and figure out exactly what you want to get out of it. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, but you want to make sure that you don't waste the 15 or 30 minutes. Because there's one thing you can't give me back is my time.
That's interesting because first time when I got into working in media, what my mom told me is just go to your office. And I went to Capital Newspaper and I asked them to hire me. And I started working as an intern and well, here I am. So I guess the next question is, why do startups fail? Usually after the incubation period, you see a lot of startups, great idea, they do have a good funding. And after the incubation period, you see a lot of startups fail. So why do they fail?
Lack of traction. Timing is also a major issue. You have to have the right product at the right time for the consumer to be able to accept it. Pricing could be an issue. Their marketing strategy. There's just so many variables that could go wrong when you start a business. That's why being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, right? There's no guarantee that you could have the best idea in the world that is going to go out there and work, So you got to keep trying, but there's just so many variables that something could go wrong. Pricing, like I said, acceptance of the product, the marketing could have been off, the time could have been off. It's just the whole list of things.
Is it possible for a startup to revive itself after it failed?
If they can manage to reconfigure their strategy and their thinking, yeah, definitely. But in the last 21 years, we've seen companies go up and down. At one time, Nokia was the best phone you could ever get.
Yeah.
Look at it now; it's almost non-existent, right? So it is what it is. The biggest companies out there fail, and the smallest ones fail. So you have to be consistent at trying to be relevant to the market.
So it's just I wouldn't call it a chance either.
No. It's work. It takes a lot
and
of work.
calculation. But do you think that it's luck has something to do with it?
Luck has a bit of something to do with it. But you look at a product like Bic, the pen.
The penny.
Consistent. Almost 80 years. The packaging hasn't changed. The color hasn't changed. Nothing has changed. People buy Bic because they know, guaranteed that, when they take it out of the package, they can use it. Use it well, and their parents used it, and their grandparents used it. Consistent. So if you're consistent, that's the best marketing that you could ever have.
So
right?
consistency.
It's like a new restaurant will open up in the first month or two. Their portion is big, the food is great, they put a lot of butter, and the service is amazing. And you're like, but you go back 3 months later, and the waitress's uniform is torn, the washroom's dirty, and the food is not as as great as it was, and the service is. But if you're consistent, you're consistent.
I see. I think that happens to every restaurant out there. I haven't seen a single restaurant that was consistent with their products or with what they provide. So yeah. But
there's a few that have been consistent, but there's a lot that need help.
I think that's restaurants should start taking notes when it comes to these things, because
everybody should. It's not just restaurants. It's almost for almost every service. And if you're providing a product or a service to the public, consistency is one of the best things you can do to keep your business going.
As a businessman, What are the challenges that you've faced, the most difficult things that you've encountered?
Different. I mean, policy is one. Ethiopia is not the easiest place to do business because we come from a mentality of being the word Nagari itself is just a very negative sort of word, right?
Yeah.
There's the acceptance of being a business person, and it's not seen in a very positive light. You're seen as someone who's sucking money and whatever from the public rather than someone that's taking a risk, paying taxes, providing jobs and opportunities to the public or to others, right? So that notion is still not there. We don't have enough business people in government. That's another problem. We have a government that's making policy and changes, but has never run a business. I don't think anybody in government has ever run a business, and they don't know how to run a business. But they're still sitting there coming out with policies and regulations on how we should run our business. It's a big challenge.
That is a great challenge indeed. What are you currently working on?
Right now, we're working on introducing electric vehicles, especially two-wheeler motorcycles, to the Ethiopian market in a major way. Essentially trying to provide that to gig workers, so all the delivery guys that you see with bikes and motorcycles. Now the government has announced that regular motorcycles and cars are not allowed in, so everything has to be electric.
Yeah.
So it's just perfect timing. For us, we're looking at every motorcycle that we sell is a job that will be provided because that person could use that motorcycle to deliver a product to somebody else or deliver a package, food, whatever it may be. So yeah, for us, we're excited. I figure if we can sell 100,000 bikes, that's 100,000 jobs. I'm excited about that. But we're also looking at investing in startups, more startups. We're raising some money from the Ethiopian diaspora outside collectively to bring that resource here and invest it in more startups.
That's a lot. And I think like you saw a problem and you just went in and solved it because there's a I think there was a rule, or was it a policy saying that we cannot import cars that are not electrical?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
No, but we went out with the idea way before that. But that's where the world is heading. It's like, back when the first car was being made, you don't go and invest in a cart because the car is coming. So I see the same thing. I mean, the whole world is moving that way because the way we're consuming petrol and oil and gas is just not sustainable anymore at all.
I see.
We can't handle it. The earth cannot handle it. So we need to move away.
When you say that, what I hear is you're able to see further ahead and think, okay, so this is not going to work. We need to go with the technology or where the world is headed. So there is a prediction there. And,
but that's one. I mean,
how do you
see
develop
it.
that?
No, I mean you see it everywhere. If you keep and track of what's going on globally in terms of mobility, you know that electric vehicles sales are doubling every year, and the cost of gas and oil has gone up significantly. So, and the cost of batteries and components for making anything electric is going down. If you look at the solar sort of area, solar panels have gone down, I think 90% in cost in the last 10 years, 15 years. So now, it's affordable. The average family home can afford to have a solar panel and solar, power. It's the same with electric vehicles. The prices have gone down. The choices are more now. The Chinese have a few brands. Almost every car manufacturer has an electric vehicle brand now. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. And I know 10 years from now, almost everything that we ride in terms of mobility will be electric. That's happening. So it's just, I don't think there's, and when you live in a place like Ethiopia, it's also like, being in Ethiopia is like watching a movie again. The movie's already played out in Vietnam, in China, Korea, and it's maybe a bit ahead of us in Kenya. So it's just a matter of looking at seeing where they are, and that's exactly where we're heading
I see.
in terms of technology, in terms of services, in terms of products.
So you need to keep up with the news and the current trends in
yeah.
order to be a good entrepreneur.
Definitely.
Okay, I see. It was a very good stay. I think we've learned a lot with a very limited amount of time. That's a lot of information to consume. It was great having you here. It was very insightful. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot as well. So stay tuned to check out Addis Alemayehu's top recommended books.
So my two best recommendations in terms of books, the first one would be Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. I think it was a very eye-opener book in terms of his experience sharing regards to spending 27 years in jail, and the reason why he did what he did. I think is a lesson for everything in life in terms of paying sacrifice for something you believe in. That's one. The second one is Steve Jobs' biography. That also just in terms of being very committed to what you believe in and coming up with products and services that you feel the public would need. So those are the two books that I recommend.